Stock up before it's too late? You are about to make a mistake. Not because you are doing something wrong, but because you are doing nothing. While you are watching this video, something is already getting more expensive. A harvest fails somewhere, a shipment gets delayed, a factory slows production, nothing dramatic, nothing cinematic. And then one day you walk into the supermarket and realize something you always bought without thinking suddenly costs almost twice as much. And you will not see it coming, because it happens quietly, not with sirens, not with headlines, but with a small white sign in the supermarket that suddenly has a different number on it. Most people only react once the problem becomes visible. When shelves look thinner, prices jump, panic spreads, and by then, everything suddenly feels expensive. Not you, because you are watching this video to the end, and afterward you will know exactly what you should buy today, what you can grow, how to turn your harvest into supplies, and why your supermarket has long since stopped being the safest place for your food supply. Stay tuned. The part at the end is the one that surprises most people. Before anyone here starts dreaming, no, you will not become self-sufficient in 3 weeks, but starting tomorrow, you can be more independent than you are today. And it does not begin only with the garden. It begins with what you can still buy before everyone else wants it too. Preparedness starts with boring things: salt, oil, vinegar, honey, jars. Shelf-stable foods that quietly sit in the background until one day you are glad they exist. Because real preparedness doesn't feel dramatic, it feels ordinary. Right until ordinary becomes expensive. Here's something people realize too late. Some of the cheapest things in your kitchen are doing the heaviest lifting. Salt preserves food. Vinegar buys time. Oil turns basic ingredients into actual meals. Remove any one of them, and suddenly your options shrink fast. Vinegar is your pickling solution. Everything that comes from your garden that you cannot eat right away. Vinegar saves it. Oil is your calorie carrier. Rice, beans, and vegetables fill you up, but not for long. Fat is the difference between an emergency meal and dinner. Jars and lids are the silent currency of self-sufficiency. Anyone who has no jars when the harvest comes has already lost. Get them now, not when you need them. Let me briefly say something most hobby gardeners never hear. 2 tomato plants for summer salad are not supplies. That is a snack. If you really grow tomatoes for the pantry, you think differently. You choose different varieties. You plan different amounts. You are already thinking about canning when you sow and plant. If you're growing tomatoes for supplies, you stop thinking like a gardener and start thinking like a planner. Not just what grows well, what stores well, what turns into sauce, paste, powder, or 30 meals in winter. Because the moment you plant the seed, you're already deciding what dinner looks like 6 months later. Every one of those jars is one you do not have to buy. Every jar is a buffer when the supermarket becomes 30% more expensive. But here is the crucial point almost no one says out loud. When you sow and plant, you already have to know what you are going to cook. Not when you harvest, when you sow. Because supplies do not happen by accident. Supplies happen by intention. I opened a jar from summer 2023 just yesterday. Still rich, still fresh, still better than most supermarket sauce. And honestly, that's the moment growing food starts feeling different. Here's something strange about emergencies. Flavor suddenly matters more, because eating the same bland meal for weeks drains motivation fast. Broth changes everything. Simple food stops feeling like survival and starts feeling like dinner again, because broth makes simple foods more digestible. Rice with water is survival mode. Rice with broth is dinner. But you do not need cubes from the supermarket. You need carrots, celery, leeks, onions, garlic, parsley, lovage, and salt. Carrots, celery, leeks, garlic, salt. Simple ingredients become something quietly powerful. Flavor stored for months. It is the oldest seasoning paste in the world. It costs almost nothing. It lasts for months, and it turns an empty pantry shelf into a complete kitchen. You can also dry the same vegetables, grind them, and turn them into vegetable broth powder. No electricity, no freezer, no complicated recipe, just a garden, salt, and a little patience. That is the payoff for everything you are planning in the garden bed right now. Try something uncomfortable for a second. Walk into your kitchen and imagine the next 3 months depend on what is already there. Would you still enjoy eating? Or would every meal feel like surviving? Or does it taste like survival? herbs and spices play a deciding role. Herbs might be the most underrated preparedness tool there is. Tiny space, huge payoff. A balcony herb box can turn boring meals into something you actually want to eat. But it turns every rice dish, every bean, every vegetable into a real meal. And herbs do not even need a garden bed. A balcony is enough. Anyone who does not grow herbs is giving away an easy preparedness step. Now imagine this. The power doesn't come back tomorrow or next week. Everything in the freezer slowly becomes a countdown. Fermentation does not need electricity, only salt, glass, time, sauerkraut from white cabbage, salt pickles, fermented carrots or cocktail tomatoes, beets, kimchi, pickled garlic. And the special thing, the thing no freezer gives you, fermented vegetables get better with time. More flavor, more acidity, more freshness. If you open a jar of sauerkraut in February that you made in October, that is not emergency food. That is pride on a spoon. Every gardener knows this moment. Suddenly, there are too many zucchini, too many cucumbers, too much of everything at once. At first, it feels like abundance. Then you realize abundance means nothing if you can't keep it. Pickle zucchini, pickle cucumbers, peppers, chili peppers, beans, beets, onions, garlic. Everything you cannot eat in summer goes into the vinegar brine and waits for winter. For that, you need vinegar and/or oil from the supermarket. Your garden provides the rest. That is exactly why the rule is both. Not either buy or grow, but buy what you do not make yourself, and make yourself what you do not want to buy at a high price. Do you want to know how I pickle our zucchini? Let me know in the comments. I use Nonna Maria's recipe from Tuscany, and we all love it. Anyone who has berries, apples, pears, plums, or quinces, or knows someone who has them, is sitting on a treasure that they usually let rot. That is not an accusation. It is an invitation. Most neighborhoods waste more food than they realize. Fruit falls, nobody picks it, apples rot, plums disappear into the grass. Meanwhile, one weekend of harvesting could fill shelves for months. And if you do not have a fruit tree, then you know someone who has one, and whose apples rot on the ground every year. Ask, help harvest, get half. That is the moment when self-sufficiency stops being lonely. And honestly, a jar of applesauce with raisins, oats, and nuts is comfort food. Here is something almost no one says, and that most people understand too late. Here's a truth most gardeners ignore. If every spring starts with buying everything again, you're still dependent. Seeds are different. Seeds mean next season already exists before the current one ends. Tomatoes, beans, peas, lettuce, squash, herbs, all can be propagated if you know how. And now comes the part hardly anyone thinks about. Seeds can be traded. You have too many bean seeds. Your neighbor has rare tomato varieties. Someone in your region has berry cuttings. A woman 3 streets over makes mustard from homegrown yellow mustard seed. When you start trading, something happens that no supermarket and no online shop can give you. You need and help each other, and that makes you stronger. Enough theory. What can you do this week? So what do you actually do this week? Don't overhaul your life. Just move one step. Buy a little extra of what matters. Plant one more row than usual. Learn one preservation method. Fill one jar, then another. In the garden now, plant more tomatoes for sauce. Simply use the strongest suckers, stick them into the garden soil, and you already have more plants. More cucumbers and zucchini for pickling. More vegetables for soups, squash, zucchini, broccoli. Fill the fully cooked vegetable soup into jars and sterilize the jars in boiling water for about 30 minutes. The soup stays fresh in the canning jar for up to 1 year. Beans for drying, herbs for salt and tea, cabbage for fermenting, carrots, onions, garlic, celery for broth, squash for storage, berries for puree and juice. And then you work step by step. One bed, one variety, one preservation method after another. Not perfect, not complete, but real. I want to tell you something in closing that no one tells you. The system feeding you is stronger than people fear, and weaker than most people realize. It doesn't collapse all at once, it slips quietly. A bad season, delays, higher fuel costs, smaller harvests, fewer trucks, and suddenly the things you assumed would always be there start becoming expensive, scarce, or both. And then you are standing in the supermarket looking at the shelf, and the shelf looks back, Anyone who is prepared at that point calmly buys what is missing. Anyone who is not prepared panic buys everything that is still there. You now know what to do. A large bag of salt, cartons with jars and lids, more plants, herbs on the balcony, 1 jar of fermented vegetables. The first jar you preserve feels unnecessary. The 10th feels smart. The 20th changes how you think. Because preparedness stops feeling like fear and starts feeling like calm. You stop depending completely on shelves you don't control. Start this week, small, quietly, before everyone else suddenly decides it's urgent.